Opening. The silence in your apartment is a familiar shroud, woven from the threads of countless sunrises you've watched alone. Dust motes dance in the sliver of light that breaches the drawn blinds, miniature galaxies in a room otherwise stagnant. You trace the rim of a ceramic mug, the warmth seeping into your fingertips, a small anchor in the quietude that has become your life. Years have etched lines around your eyes, deeper than the city maps you once navigated with such fierce certainty. Each one a testament to the case that unraveled everything, leaving you a ghost in your own skin, Seth Corbin. The framed commendation, tucked away in a drawer you rarely open, is a relic of a different man. The sharp creases of your old uniform, now folded neatly in a storage box, hold the faint scent of ambition and purpose. Now your days unfold in a predictable rhythm of coffee, the rustle of a forgotten newspaper, and the ceaseless hum of introspection. The world outside, with its sirens and hurried footsteps, feels distant. A broadcast you no longer participate in. You are a sentinel of your own solitude, guarding the embers of a career that burned out too soon, extinguished by whispers and accusations, all centered on a killer who vanished like smoke. A sharp rap on your door shatters the stillness, an unwelcome intrusion. Your hand instinctively tenses on the mug. No one knocks anymore. Not here. Not you. Your gaze drifts to the peephole, a distorted lens offering a glimpse of a face you know, a face etched with a mix of reluctance and urgency. It's the detective from your old unit, a man whose career you once championed, now standing on the wrong side of your threshold. His jaw is tight, his eyes avoiding yours directly, a clear signal that whatever he carries is heavy. You unlatch the locks, each click a tiny surrender. The detective steps inside, his presence filling the small space with an uncomfortable energy. He doesn't sit, doesn't even shed his coat. He simply stands, a thick file clutched in his hand, its edges worn. "It happened again, Seth," he says, the words clipped, barely audible above the sudden thrumming in your ears. Almost exactly. Your breath hitches. He opens the file, not looking at you, but at the glossy photographs within. A body. He was found this morning. A financial consultant. Name's Eleanor Vance. He pushes a photo across your worn kitchen table. It's a woman, impeccably dressed, lying amidst scattered papers. The scene is immaculate, almost staged. Too neat. Your eyes fixate on the details. The way her hands are posed, palms upturned, fingers slightly curled. The single, pristine white lily placed delicately on her chest, its petals untouched. A knot tightens in your stomach. It's a signature, unmistakable. The same meticulous arrangement, the same symbolic bloom. "Where?" You force out, your voice hoarse. "The offshore law office with shred bins and locked safes," the detective replies, his gaze finally meeting yours, a flicker of something akin to fear in their depths. "Third floor." The security footage shows nothing. No forced entry, no signs of struggle, just her. The very nature of the place screams discretion, layers of corporate secrecy. A perfect hunting ground for a phantom. Your mind races back, unearthing memories you'd meticulously buried. 7 years ago, the case that ruined you. A prominent banker found in his private study, the scene identical. The posed hands, the single white lily, the absence of any trace. The police had called it a master criminal, a ghost, no blood, just like she fell asleep and never woke up. He points to a small, almost imperceptible discoloration on her temple. Forensics are looking into it, but it's faint. Could be a pressure point, a nerve agent. Too clean. Too clean. That was the phrase that haunted your nightmares. The way the previous victim, Arthur Vance, no relation surely, had been found. The same uncanny stillness, the same absence of struggle. Any other details? You press, leaning closer, your eyes scanning the images for any deviation, any crack in the killer's flawless veneer. The detective hesitates, then pulls out another photo, a close-up of the victim's desk. This was found on her keyboard. It's a small, ornate silver key, ancient-looking, with no discernible markings. Doesn't belong to the office. No one recognizes it. A silver key. A new element. Or a forgotten one. You remember the meticulous inventory from the old case, the items overlooked, dismissed as irrelevant. Could something similar have been missed? The killer's taunt, perhaps. And the shred bins? You ask, thinking aloud. Were they checked? Anything missing from the locked safes? The shred bins were full, normal office waste. The safes are still locked, untouched. Nothing of value seems to have been taken. The detective confirms, a weariness in his voice. It's not about robbery, Seth. You always said that. You nod slowly, the pieces of a terrible puzzle clicking into place. The killer hadn't just returned. They had never truly left. They had been waiting, watching, honing their craft, perhaps even laughing at your public disgrace, your fall from grace. The shame that had clung to you like a second skin now felt like a warning, a prophecy fulfilled. They want you to know, you murmur, your gaze distant, piercing through the years. They want us to know. The detective stares at you, a flicker of understanding, perhaps apprehension in his eyes. The chief wants me to tell you, unofficially, of course, that they're bringing in an outside consultant, someone who knows the old case. He doesn't need to say more. The implication hangs heavy in the air. You are that consultant, the disgraced detective, called back to the very precipice from which you fell. The phantom killer, your tormentor, has finally shown their hand, and they are calling you back to the game. The suffocating blanket of dread settles, cold and heavy. A chilling, undeniable summons. It finds you in the quiet hum of your solitude, a persistent vibration beneath the floorboards of your carefully constructed peace. The world you abandoned now pushes against the flimsy barricade of your self-imposed exile, demanding audience. The knock comes precisely at dusk, a sharp, insistent rap that echoes too loudly in the small, ordered space you call home. You knew it would. The news had seeped into the cracks of your quiet life, whispered by the evening broadcast, seen in the grim set of the anchor's jaw. A new death. A familiar pattern. You open the door to the lead detective, a man whose face has etched deeper lines since you last saw him across a conference table, arguing for a theory no one else would entertain. His eyes, though weary, still hold that flicker of sharp intelligence you once admired. He doesn't offer a greeting, merely a curt nod. Seth. Your name, from his lips, sounds like an accusation. You stand aside, allowing him entry. He brings with him the scent of stale coffee, city rain, and something acrid, the residue of a fresh crime scene. He doesn't bother with pleasantries, doesn't even sit. Just like your others. The implication is a barb, twisting in an old wound. You don't flinch. You merely eye the folder, its tan surface a blank canvas for the horrors it contains. My others? You echo, the words tasting like ash. They were never mine. They were the city's, the department's. And you all decided my theories were inconvenient. The lead detective ignores the jab. He opens the folder, sliding a glossy photograph across the table. It is a stark image, clinical and brutal. The victim's face, pale and distant, stares up at the camera. A woman, mid-40s, impeccably dressed even in death. Her eyes are open, fixed on something unseen. And then you see it. The precise, almost surgical incision at the base of her throat. You remember the first one, the very first one, nearly 2 decades ago. The same meticulous precision. The rose petal. Always the rose petal. Eleanor Vance, the lead detective supplies, his gaze unwavering. A financial consultant. He was found this morning in an offshore law office with shred bins and locked safes downtown. Her office. No forced entry, no struggle, clean. Too clean. You pick up the photograph, your fingers tracing the edges. The clarity of the image does not soften the impact. The rose, you ask, your voice barely a rasp. Crimson, fully bloomed, tucked in exactly the same way. The MO is identical, Seth, down to the last gruesome detail. He pushes another photo forward. This one is a wider shot of the office. Pristine, save for the victim. A high-backed leather chair, a polished mahogany desk, and in the corner, a glint of steel from a locked safe, its door slightly ajar. A large shred bin stands nearby, overflowing with shredded documents like confetti after a macabre celebration. You scrutinize the image. The safe? Empty. Or rather, what was in it is gone. And the shred bin? Full of what we assume were her recent files. Neatly shredded. A clean sweep. The lead detective leans forward, his voice dropping further, imbued with a raw urgency. We've got nothing. No witnesses, no prints, no forced entry, no struggle. Not a single trace left behind. Just like the others, Seth. The phantom killer. The one you'd named the gardener in your disgraced theories, for his meticulous care and his signature rose. The one the department had dismissed as a figment of your overactive imagination, a convenient scapegoat for your inability to close the case. Why are you here? You ask, the question sharp, though you already know the answer. Because no one else saw it, Seth. Not really. You called it a pattern, a signature, a long game. His eyes bore into yours, desperate, almost pleading. You were right. You were always right about him. You know how he thinks. You know his meticulousness. You know his patience. A wave of nausea washes over you. The past, a venomous current, pulls at your ankles. Now they want you to walk back into that labyrinth. I'm out, you say, your voice firm, an attempt to seal off the open wound. Retired. Disgraced. You made sure of that. This isn't about the department, Seth. This is about Eleanor Vance and the others, and whoever comes next. He's back, or he never left, and we need you. Your twisted insight, your obsessions, your theories, however inconvenient they were. The lead detective's jaw tightens. He's escalating. The last victim was a decade ago. Now this, he's sending a message, and you're the only one who might understand it. You walk to the window, staring out at the encroaching night. The wind howls, a mournful lament. You feel the pull, an insidious magnetism you'd fought to resist for so long. The ghost of your past, the phantom killer, has reached across the years and gripped you by the throat. You remember the faces of the old victims, the ones whose cases you could never close, whose families you could never bring peace. Turning back to the lead detective, your jaw set, a grim resolve solidifying in your chest, you meet his gaze. The quiet life you'd built, brick by painful brick, crumbles around you. The monster you failed to catch has returned, and it demands your attention. You are Seth Corbin, and this is your cross to bear once more. Show me the rest, you say, your voice low, resonant with a newfound terrifying determination. Show me everything. Killer, now a tangible shadow stretching across your path once more. The city hums below, a symphony of indifference, but you feel the discordant note, the one only you can hear. This isn't just another echo. It's a direct call, a challenge etched in fresh blood demanding your attention, your singular, disgraced mind. You turn from the window, the decision hardening in your chest, a cold resolve settling deep. The night is a cloak as you return to your small, cluttered study. Dust motes dance in the weak glow of the desk lamp, illuminating stacks of forgotten reports, yellowed newspaper clippings, and the meticulously organized boxes that house the remnants of your former life. You pull down the largest one, its cardboard edges softened by time and countless anxious touches. The serpent case, scrawled in your own hand, a label that felt more like a curse. You spread the files across the worn mahogany, an archaeological dig into your own professional grave. The photographs, still vivid, stare back. The victim's serene, unnerving repose. The precise, almost artistic arrangement of the scene. The distinctive ligature marks. Your eyes scan the witness statements, the forensic reports, the dismissed theories. You remember the arguments, the dead ends, the gnawing frustration that had corroded your career from the inside out. Every word, every misplaced comma, every nuance of the investigation that had broken you now demands re-evaluation. Hours dissolve into the pre-dawn quiet. The modus operandi is disturbingly familiar, a signature you'd memorized like your own reflection. The location, the timing, the absence of struggle, all echo the original series. But it's a subtle shift, a barely perceptible refinement in the killer's craft that catches your eye. A different type of knot used, yes, but the way it's tied, the underlying method, is identical. A progression, not a deviation. You pull out a fresh pad of paper, the scratch of your pen loud in the stillness. A timeline begins to form, intertwining the old deaths with the new one. A pattern emerges, not just in the killings themselves, but in the victims. They were all, in their own ways, figures of quiet influence, connected to specific, intricate financial dealings. The old case files mention a series of offshore transactions, a shell corporation, a web of legal maneuvers that had ultimately been deemed too complex, too tangential to the murders themselves. Dismissed as irrelevant, a red herring. But now, with the new victim's profile, a different picture begins to coalesce. You make a call, the number etched into your memory, a lifeline to the world you'd been expelled from. It's Seth. I need a favor, an old favor. The voice on the other end is guarded, hesitant. Loyalty, a rare commodity, eventually prevails. Meet me at the usual place midnight. The usual place is a forgotten corner booth in a diner that never closes, its fluorescent lights casting a sickly pallor on the worn linoleum. The former colleague, a weary-eyed detective named Miller, slides into the booth opposite you, a steaming mug of coffee his only companion. You're playing with fire. Seth, Miller murmurs, his gaze darting around the empty diner. Just tell me what you have on the new one. You press, ignoring the warning. Anything about their business dealings? Any connections to obscure legal entities? Miller sips his coffee, his brow furrowed. They were tangled up in some complex stuff, yes. An offshore holding? A trust fund. Nothing concrete yet, but the Financial Crimes Unit is looking into it. Seems like a lot of their assets were managed through one of those high-end, discrete operations. A flicker ignites in your mind. Do you have a name? An address? Miller hesitates, then sighs, pulling a crumpled napkin from his pocket. He scribbles a few words, pushing it across the table. This is off the record, Seth. If this comes back to me... You nod, pocketing the napkin without a glance. The address confirms your growing suspicion. It's the same firm, or at least one with an identical operational structure that had briefly appeared in the margins of the old investigation. A place you'd always wanted to revisit, but had been denied the authority to pursue. You find yourself standing before the imposing glass facade of the offshore law office with shred bins and locked safes. It's late, the building a silent monolith against the urban sprawl. The address Miller gave you, the one from the new victim's preliminary file, points directly here. This is where the paper trails converge, where fortunes are shifted and secrets are buried. You recall the old victim's financial records, the brief, almost imperceptible mention of a specialized legal service, handled by a firm known for its discretion. Through a contact you'd cultivated in the murky world of corporate security, a man who owed you a forgotten favor from years past, you gain entry. The air inside is cool, sterile, smelling faintly of expensive paper and stale coffee. You move through the hushed corridors, past rows of identical, unyielding doors. You locate the target, an executive office, impeccably tidy. The victim's name, or a close associate's, is subtly etched on a polished plaque. On the desk, an open planner, a stack of recent correspondences. Your eyes fall on a small, leather-bound ledger, tucked away in a drawer you find unlocked. Its pages are filled with precise, almost calligraphic script, detailing transactions, dates, and names. Most are innocuous, but 2 entries, separated by years, leap out at you. One date corresponds precisely with a significant financial maneuver by your old victim, just weeks before their death. The other, barely a month ago, details a similar transaction for the new victim. This isn't just a similar crime. It's the same hand, operating through the same intricate web, picking off targets linked by a shared hidden vulnerability. The Phantom Killer wasn't just back. They had never left. The ledger, clutched in your hand, feels heavier than lead. The tension in the silent office is palpable. A silent scream of impending discovery. The cold certainty that settled upon you after the latest discovery, a phantom limb ache of a past failure, now thrummed with a new, sinister energy. The killer hadn't merely returned. They had been a specter haunting the periphery, an unseen architect of suffering. And now, their gaze had turned to you. You felt it in the prickle on your skin, the way the air seemed to thicken around you, heavy with unspoken threats. The intricate web you'd glimpsed was tightening, and you were no longer merely an observer, but a fly caught within its silken strands. The knock came just as dawn bled hesitant colors into the bruised sky, a hesitant rap that belied the terror it delivered. You found a small package on your stoop, nestled against the weathered wood of your front door like an offering. No sender, no address, just the quiet weight of it. A tremor, barely perceptible, traced its path up your arm as you carried it inside. The lid lifted with a soft sigh of ancient wood. Inside, resting on a bed of black velvet, lay a single dried bloom. Your breath hitched, a sudden sharp intake of frigid air. Only the investigators and the killer knew. And now, you. Beneath the flower, a folded slip of parchment-like paper. Your fingers, steady despite the tremor in your gut, unfolded it. This wasn't just about the victims anymore. It was about you, Seth Corbin, the one who had failed. The Phantom Killer knew your weakness, your past, and was weaving you into their deadly narrative. You moved with a renewed purpose, the scent of dried nightshade still clinging to your senses. Now it felt like a spotlight. You knew the name of a firm, a notorious haven for obscure dealings, one that had been tangentially linked to one of the earlier victims, though never proven. The drive to the city's financial district felt both endless and impossibly swift. Its entrance, a revolving door, spun with the casual indifference of those who believed themselves untouchable. The reception area was hushed, opulent. A receptionist, a woman with eyes that seemed to weigh your intentions, offered a polite but firm barrier. "May I help you?" she asked. Her voice modulated to a perfect impersonal pitch. "I need access to the archives," you stated, your voice low, resonant. Specifically, a man whose financial dealings had been as murky as a swamp bottom. Her brow furrowed. "Mr. Corbin, without an appointment and without proper authorization." "This isn't about authorization," you cut in, leaning slightly over the polished counter. "It's about an ongoing investigation. A very old one." Your gaze held hers, unwavering. "I believe there's a file, perhaps misfiled or marked for destruction, that contains a detail. A specific pattern, a hidden link. The receptionist hesitated, her composure momentarily fractured by the intensity of your focus. Before he could articulate another refusal, the chime of the elevator announced an arrival. Stepping out was the current detective on the case, his expression tight, his eyes sharp and assessing, locking onto you immediately. He carried a manila folder thick with documents. Seth Corbin, the detective stated, his voice devoid of surprise, tinged with a weariness that spoke of long nights. I thought I might find you here. He gestured to the folder. A lead from the latest victim's digital footprint. And then a notification just this morning of an attempted access to that account. From your old burner phone, Seth. The accusation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The pressure was immense, the walls closing in. You hadn't touched that relic in years, a device you kept for emergencies, tucked away in a dusty drawer. Yes, the detective confirmed, stepping closer, his presence a wall of suspicion. A digital ghost, resurrected. And now you're here, asking for old files. Coincidence, Seth? Or something far more intricate? You met his gaze, the burning fury in your chest, now a controlled blaze. The killer knew your every move, your every vulnerability. This wasn't just a challenge. It was a declaration of war. You were no longer just chasing a ghost. You were fighting for your very freedom, your very life. Fluorescent light, flat and unyielding, bleached the scene of its warmth, casting long, stark shadows from the empty desks and the heavy, silent safes. Your breath hitched, a phantom tightening in your chest as you surveyed the meticulous disarray. This wasn't chaos, it was a stage. The killer's declaration, a whisper of malice carried on the indifferent hum of the ventilation system, resonated in the quiet. Your eyes, sharp and practiced, scanned the room. The victim, the senior partner of this clandestine enterprise, was long gone, his absence a gaping maw. But his ghost lingered, clinging to the leather-bound ledgers, the silent terminals, the very air you breathed. No struggle here. The police had already scoured the primary crime scene, but this, you knew, was where the true narrative unfolded. The killer wanted you here, Seth. Every fiber of your being screamed it. Your gaze fell upon the row of industrial shred bins, their maw-like openings promising oblivion for secrets. One bin, however, stood slightly ajar, a sliver of beige paper clinging to its teeth. A deliberate oversight, perhaps? A breadcrumb. Just as your fingers grazed the discarded fragment, the heavy oak door creaked open, admitting the lead detective, his expression a familiar blend of weary authority and thinly veiled contempt. Behind him, a uniformed officer, younger, less cynical, held a large evidence bag. Corbin. The lead detective's voice was a low growl. Still playing ghost in the machine? We have a new development. You straightened, the paper fragment now a secret clutched in your palm. Oh, he was found your phantom yet? The sarcasm was a shield, a necessary defense against his ingrained skepticism. Better, he retorted, a smirk playing on his lips. We found motive, means, and opportunity, all wrapped up in a neat bow. And it leads straight to our victim's senior financial officer, a man named Elias Thorne. Your brows furrowed. Elias Thorne. You knew the name from the initial reports, a quiet, meticulous man, known for his unwavering loyalty to the firm. Too neat, too convenient. He's been embezzling for years, the lead detective continued, gesturing towards the evidence bag the uniformed officer held. Our forensics team just pulled these from a hidden compartment in Thorne's private safe here. Forged invoices, shell company transactions, a paper trail leading directly to $500,000 in diverted funds. Seems our victim was about to expose him. A desperate act, wouldn't you say? The uniformed officer held up the bag, revealing stacks of crisp, official-looking documents. They were damning, undeniably so. The senior financial officer, a quiet man with no known history of violence, suddenly transformed into a desperate embezzler pushed to murder. It was a story that fit, a narrative that tied up loose ends for the official investigation. The tension in the air, however, was not dissipating for you. It was thickening, a suffocating shroud. While the lead detective expounded on the newly discovered evidence, his voice a drone in your ears, your eyes drifted back to the shred bins. The small fragment of paper in your hand felt strangely significant now. You knew the lead detective wouldn't consider such a minor detail, not when a smoking gun had just been found. You pretended to listen, nodding occasionally, but your mind was elsewhere, piecing together the invisible threads. The forgeries, the hidden compartment. It was all too perfect. The killer, your nemesis, was a master of misdirection, a puppeteer pulling strings. As the lead detective concluded his summary, instructing the uniformed officer to secure the newly discovered evidence, you moved subtly towards the row of shred bins. Your back momentarily turned to them. Your fingers worked quickly, retrieving more fragments from the bin that had been slightly ajar. These weren't from the victim's firm either. They were thin, almost translucent paper with faint watermarks. You quickly tucked them into your pocket. "You look like you've seen a ghost, Corbin," the lead detective remarked, catching your attention. "Just thinking about how easily a narrative can be manipulated," you replied, your gaze meeting his, a challenge in your eyes. "This Thorne, he's known for his precision, isn't he? His meticulous nature?" "Indeed," the lead detective agreed. "Makes sense he'd be careful with his embezzlement until the pressure got too much." "Or," you countered, "someone else was meticulous enough to frame him, to create a narrative so compelling, so flawlessly executed, that it distracts from the true architect." The lead detective scoffed, dismissing your insinuation with a wave of his hand. "Always the conspiracy theorist, Corbin? This is an open and shut case. We have our man." He left then, the uniformed officer following, the heavy oak door closing behind them with a definitive thud. You pulled the paper fragments from your pocket, examining them under the harsh fluorescent light. The logo, barely discernible, began to form a pattern. It wasn't just a company. It was an older firm, one that had gone bankrupt decades ago, a ghost in the corporate graveyard. And the paper itself, the watermarks. They spoke of an era long past, a specific batch of stationery no longer in circulation. Reveal discovery. The forged documents implicating Elias Thorne were too perfect. The financial discrepancies were recent, aggressive. But these shredded fragments, unearthed from a bin that should have contained only contemporary waste, pointed to a connection to the victim that predated Thorne's employment, perhaps even predated the victim's current firm. They hinted at a long-forgotten venture, a foundational secret, not a recent betrayal. The killer wasn't exploiting Thorne's current embezzlement. They were using it as a smokescreen, drawing attention away from a deeper, older wound, a history only someone intimately familiar with the victim's past could possibly know. The official investigation had found their culprit, a convenient and logical conclusion. But you, Seth, now held a piece of a different puzzle, one that stretched further back than any recent fraud. The senior financial officer was a red herring, a carefully constructed distraction. The true killer wasn't driven by recent financial gain, but by something far more ancient, far more personal. And they had just used the entire police force to buy themselves more time. The battle had just begun, and you were standing on the wrong side of a carefully laid trap. Each piece, no larger than your thumb, whispered of lost information, of secrets deliberately dismembered. The paper felt expensive, fibrous, with a faint, almost imperceptible watermark you couldn't quite discern. You tried to fit 2 pieces together, then 3, the jagged edges refusing to align, like shards of a broken mirror reflecting only distorted truths. A faint scent of old paper and something metallic, like stale ink, clung to the fragments. Your fingers, calloused from years of gripping evidence bags and cold steel, moved with a practiced, frustrated grace. You laid them out on the polished mahogany, a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing, the picture deliberately obscured. Your mind, a relentless archive of forgotten details, began its own frantic search. You saw the face of the first victim from that old, damning case, the one that had stripped you of your badge and reputation. You remembered the sterile gleam of the scene, the meticulous absence of anything that could point to a motive. But there had been something. Always something. It wasn't about the victims themselves or the method. It was something else. The room had been pristine, almost staged, save for a single small ornamental paperweight on the desk. A heavy bronze piece intricately sculpted. At the time, it seemed like a personal affectation, an expensive bauble. But you remember the way the light had caught it, revealing a subtle, almost hidden, stylized knot etched into its base. A complex, interwoven pattern, like a serpent devouring its own tail, but with a unique, almost heraldic flair. You dismissed it then, overwhelmed by the larger picture, the brutality of the crime. Just a decorative piece. You leaned closer, pushing the fragments together with renewed urgency, your breath held tight in your chest. One piece, slightly larger than the others, bore a faint impression, a raised texture that seemed out of place with the smooth surface of the rest of the document. You angled it under the desk lamp, turning it slowly. It was barely visible, a ghost of an image, but your eyes, trained to see patterns in chaos, latched onto it. It was a sliver of the same stylized knot. Not a perfect image, not the full emblem, but enough. The distinct curvature, the interlocking lines that formed a continuous, unbroken loop. The same serpent-like fluidity, the ancient, enigmatic design. A jolt, like a surge of high voltage, coursed through you. It wasn't just a paperweight. It wasn't just a random detail. It was a signature. A mark. You closed your eyes for a moment, letting the implications settle, then snapped them open, a fierce determination hardening your gaze. The knot. You had seen it again. The local detective had dismissed it as a family heirloom, a sentimental trinket. But you remembered the brief, almost dismissive mention in the initial report. A crude, almost amateurish etching on the reverse, obscured by wear. You hadn't seen the locket yourself, but the description now resonated with a horrifying echo. Crude, almost amateurish etching. Could it have been an attempt to replicate that same complex knot? Or perhaps a less refined version of it, etched by someone less skilled, yet still striving for the same symbol? The victims, old and new, were not connected by profession or social circle or even geography, not directly. They were connected by this silent, cryptic mark. Why a knot? What did it signify? Lineage? A pact? An unbreakable bond? A puzzle? You felt the pieces of the shattered timeline beginning to reassemble, not randomly, but guided by this hidden thread. The tension in the room was a tangible presence, pressing in on you. They had been operating in plain sight, their gruesome artistry marked by this ancient, silent symbol. The paper fragments, once mere trash, now held a terrifying weight. They were not just remnants of a document. They were pieces of a much larger, more sinister tapestry. You had the pattern. Now you needed the weaver. You gathered the fragments carefully, almost reverently, placing them back into your pocket. The game had changed. You were no longer just chasing a ghost. You were deciphering a language of death, and you were finally beginning to understand. The paper felt crisp with age, yet resilient, as if infused with the very stubbornness of the secrets it held. Hours bled into one another, the silence of the office broken only by the rustle of paper and the distant hum of the city. Slowly, painstakingly, a fractured image began to coalesce. A partial corporate logo, an archaic emblem of intertwined serpents, and beneath it, a sequence of alphanumeric characters, faded but discernible. Your memory, a landscape scarred by past failures, recognized the serpents. The alphanumeric string, when cross-referenced against your mental archives, pointed to a specific property, an abandoned factory on the city's forgotten industrial fringe. The drive was a descent into the city's underbelly. A winding path through forgotten districts. A chain-link fence, rusted and torn in places, offered little resistance. You slipped through a gap, the metallic groan a jarring note in the suffocating quiet. The air here was thick with the scent of decay, of forgotten industry and time's relentless erosion. The main gate was chained, but a smaller access door, half-rotted, hung ajar. A faint, acrid smell, not of rust, but something more recent, chemical, pricked your nostrils. Inside, the vast space swallowed sound, amplifying the scuff of your boots on the concrete floor. Moonlight filtered through the grimy skylights, painting the cavernous interior in stark chiaroscuro. Old machinery, hulking and skeletal, stood frozen in time, draped in cobwebs and dust. A flicker of movement. Not a rat, not the wind silhouetted against a distant patch of moonlight, moved with an unnerving purpose. You pressed yourself against a colossal press, its cold metal seeping into your jacket. A stocky individual, perhaps the watchman, carried a heavy-gauge flashlight, its beam sweeping the floor in deliberate arcs. He was not merely patrolling, he was guarding. Your gaze sharpened, tracing the watchman's path. His hand went to one, a barely perceptible shift, a hidden access point. This was it. You waited until his back was fully turned, his beam focused on a different corner of the factory. Then, a quick, silent dash across the open space, your breath held tight in your chest. You reached the panels, your fingers finding the faint seam the watchman had touched. A soft click, and a section of the wall, disguised as an innocuous control panel, swung inward, revealing a narrow, unlit passage. The acrid smell was stronger here. Just as you began to slip inside, a metallic clang echoed from the factory floor. The watchman had dropped his flashlight. You froze, half in, half out of the hidden passage. There was no time to retreat, no time to hide further. The passage was barely wide enough for your shoulders, leading into a cramped, dusty room. The air was heavy, stale, and tinged with that chemical scent. The watchman's footsteps were rapid now, closing the distance. You heard the scraping of metal as he fumbled for the hidden panel. You were trapped. I know you're in there. His voice was closer, laced with a dangerous edge. Come out, or I come in. You pressed yourself against the far wall, your eyes scanning the tiny space. Shelves lined one side, filled with old ledgers, some with faded covers, others bound in plain brown paper. The chemical smell intensified. You snatched one, its cover brittle, and thumbed it open. Dates. Names. Not random. The names were unfamiliar, but the dates spanned decades, mirroring the timeline of the Phantom Killer's resurgence. And then, a small, distinctive symbol etched beside several of the names. A tiny, almost imperceptible mark. A stylized raven. The watchman had a powerful torch, and his silhouette filled the narrow opening. Drop whatever you have now. You couldn't drop the ledger, the link, the proof. I'm not leaving without this, you stated, your voice steady despite the tremor in your hand. He lunged, a grunt escaping his lips, his heavy frame filling the opening. He cried out, more in surprise than pain, a shallow cut blooming on his forearm. The ledger clutched tight. You squeezed past him in the narrow confines, bursting back into the main factory floor. The watchman roared, recovering quickly, his torch now a weapon, swinging wildly. You ducked under a flailing arm, the beam of light grazing your temple. He was faster than he looked, fueled by a sudden violent rage. You knew you couldn't fight his head-on without risking the ledger, without risking discovery. Your only option was escape. You sprinted towards the gap in the fence, the watchman's heavy footsteps thudding behind you, his shouts echoing through the cavernous factory. You heard a metallic clatter. Perhaps he'd dropped something else or tripped. You didn't look back. Your lungs burned, your legs pumped, propelling you through the cool night air. You burst through the fence, the torn wire snagging your jacket, a sharp tear. You knew he had seen you. Your face, your intent. The utility knife, cold steel against your palm, pressed firm. Not a deep cut, not a lethal one, but a sharp, undeniable sting against the attacker's bicep. A gasp, less of pain, more of startled disbelief ripped from his throat. His heavy frame recoiled, a momentary fissure in his aggression. That instant, that fragile sliver of time was all you needed. You twisted, a blur of motion, the ledger still clutched fiercely, your shoulder brushing the doorframe as you burst through the narrow opening. The night air, sharp and unforgiving, slapped your face. Your lungs burned, each ragged breath a desperate plea for oxygen as your legs propelled you forward. The alley, a twisting gut of shadow and forgotten refuse, offered a fleeting sanctuary. You didn't glance back, the thud of heavy footsteps fading, then vanishing, swallowed by the city's indifferent hum. The ledger, its worn leather cover strangely comforting, was your anchor in the churning chaos. It was the link, the proof. The streetlights blurred into streaks of amber and white as you navigated the city's arteries. Your destination, a stark, glass and steel monolith on the city's outskirts. It was a place designed for discretion, for secrets, for the careful burial of inconvenient truths. And tonight, it would yield its final brutal one. The building stood silent, a sentinel against the pre-dawn sky. Its polished lobby, usually bustling with hushed conversations, echoed with your solitary footsteps. The security console, surprisingly accessible, yielded to the familiar override code you'd memorized years ago from a case that felt a lifetime past. A click, a soft whir, and the heavy glass doors hissed open. The air inside was sterile, cool, carrying the faint metallic tang of ozone from dormant servers. You moved through the labyrinthine corridors, each door a silent guardian of untold transactions, until you reached the executive floor. The office you sought belonged to a shell corporation, a front for the very network you were unraveling. A network that had, for decades, shielded a ghost. You found the light switch, bathing the room in a harsh fluorescent glow. Desks stood in neat rows, silent terminals displaying static screensavers. Your gaze swept over the precise order, the lack of personal clutter, the methodical tidiness. Your eyes landed on a row of imposing shred bins, their slots gaping like hungry mouths, and a wall of heavy, bolted-down safes. This was where the paper trail ended, or began anew. The ledger felt heavier now, charged with a terrible significance. You laid it flat on a pristine conference table, its pages yellowed, brittle at the edges. Names, dates, cryptic entries. They weren't just financial transactions. They were a chronology. Each entry, a meticulously recorded payment, a transfer of assets, coincided with the known dates of the accidents, the disappearances, the unsolved cases that had haunted your career. You traced a finger along a line, a specific date from 27 years ago. The first victim. Not the killer's initials, you realized, but the victims. The ledger wasn't a log of the killer's actions, but a record of their victims' assets. The killer wasn't just ending lives. They were systematically acquiring wealth, transferring it through a complex web of shell companies, each transaction masked by the legitimacy of this very office. A scent. Faint, almost imperceptible, but distinct. A particular brand of pipe tobacco, sweet and earthy, that you'd encountered before. A specific, almost nostalgic aroma. The scent of your former mentor, the old district attorney. Your breath hitched. He had been here. Recently. The shred bins. You walked over, your heart hammering a frantic rhythm against your ribs. One of them, usually sealed, was slightly ajar. A single thin sliver of paper, missed by the hungry blades, lay curled on the rim. You picked it up, your fingers trembling. A fragment of a signature. An elegant, looping C. You knew that script. You'd seen it on commendations, on case files, on the letter that had dismissed you from the force. The ledger's final pages were different. And then, at the very end, a single stark entry. Seth Corbin. Variable. Contingency. The world tilted. The air grew heavy, thick with the weight of revelation. It wasn't about money for money's sake. It was about control. About absolute, unyielding dominion over a carefully constructed empire of influence and secrets, built on the bones of those who threatened its stability. The old district attorney. He hadn't just been your mentor. He had been the architect of your downfall, the puppeteer pulling the strings of a decades-long conspiracy. He hadn't returned. He had never left. He was the phantom, the one who had always been there, watching, manipulating, erasing. And you, Seth Corbin, were merely the latest variable in his meticulously planned game. A contingency to be managed, then eliminated. The hum of the building, once a distant drone, now felt like a predatory purr. He knew you were coming. He had been expecting you. The salt-laced wind whips at your coat as you step onto the desolate pier, the air tasting of brine and impending storm. A fitting prelude to the truth you stalk. Ahead, a monolithic structure of glass and polished steel, stark against the bruised twilight, looms like a tombstone to forgotten lives. This is it, the nerve center of an empire built on whispers and silenced screams. Your breath hitches, not from the climb, but from the cold certainty settling in your bones. You push through the heavy, unmarked door. It yields with a sigh, not a creak, into an echoing lobby. A low hum emanates from deeper within, a mechanical gnawing. You follow the sound, your hand instinctively reaching for the familiar weight in your jacket pocket. The hum grows louder, a hungry drone, leading you down a pristine corridor lined with opaque glass doors. Each step is a calculated risk, a gamble against the ghost you've chased for decades. You push open the final door. The room is vast, filled with filing cabinets, computer terminals, and, in the center, a series of industrial-grade shredders devouring sheets of paper with relentless ferocity. And there, amidst the blizzard of white confetti, stands the architect. Their back is to you, their movements precise, almost ritualistic, feeding documents into the maw of a machine that chews up secrets. The scent of ozone and stale paper hangs heavy, a cloying perfume of deceit. The architect turns slowly, their face a study in calm composure, utterly devoid of surprise. It's the senior partner, the one whose name graced the gilded plaque in the lobby, the figurehead of this financial fortress. My career. All of it led here. To you. The architect offers a faint, almost pitying smile. You see only the surface, Seth. The deaths were unfortunate, yes, but necessary. This institution, this network, it provides stability. It ensures certain truths remain unexamined. Those you chased, those you thought were victims, they threatened to unravel it all, to expose the delicate balance. And you, Seth, you were too close, too persistent, a loose thread. So you framed me. You accuse, the words a bitter taste. A convenient consequence, the architect corrects, turning back to feed another stack of papers into the hungry machine. The mechanism was already in place. Your past indiscretions, your unwavering focus on a dead end. It was a simple matter to redirect suspicion, to make you the phantom, to turn the hunter into the hunted. You observe the methodical destruction. The locked safes along the far wall, heavy steel doors gleaming under the dim light. Hold the remaining secrets. The architect isn't just shredding. They're erasing an entire history, a legacy of corruption, a meticulously constructed narrative. You have to stop them. This ends now, you declare, moving forward, your footsteps crunching on the accumulating drifts of shredded paper. The architect sighs, a sound of weary resignation. It was inevitable, I suppose. The last loose thread. A shame. You were always so tenacious, Seth. A good detective, misguided perhaps, but persistent. Suddenly their hand darts out, not towards a weapon, but towards a control panel on the wall. A low, guttural alarm blares, echoing through the vast space, a siren of finality. Simultaneously, a heavy, reinforced door slams shut behind you, sealing you in. The shredders, instead of slowing, seem to increase their frenzied pace, their hungry jaws gnashing louder. The final act, Seth, the architect says, their voice now sharper, devoid of its previous calm, their eyes fixed on the illuminated keypad of a massive safe. And you, unfortunately, are part of it. You glance around, assessing the room. The architect is moving with purpose towards one of the large, bolted safes, a digital keypad glowing faintly. They intend to open it, retrieve something, or perhaps destroy its contents within the secure confines of this room, completing their erasure. The alarm continues its piercing wail, a relentless soundtrack to the unfolding climax. What's in there? You demand, your gaze flicking between the architect and the safe. The last vestiges of a past I refuse to acknowledge, the architect replies, their fingers already dancing across the keypad. The true foundations of this empire. And the proof you seek, Seth. The definitive link between the first accident and the most recent, unfortunate incident. All of it about to become dust. You lunge, propelled by years of frustrated justice, by the ghosts of the victims, by the lingering stain on your own name. The architect anticipates your move, a practiced evasion, sidestepping with a surprising agility for their age. They continue inputting the code, their eyes never leaving the glowing numbers. You throw yourself at the safe, hoping to block their access, but a swift kick to your shin sends a searing pain up your leg, momentarily buckling your knee. This isn't about greed. It's about order, about maintaining the structure. Those who defy it, those who seek to expose its foundations, must be removed. You are no different. You threaten everything. With a final triumphant press, the safe clicks, a heavy metallic thud echoing through the room. They reach in, their fingers brushing against the brittle paper. The final damning evidence, about to be consumed by fire or shredder. You see your chance, a small window of opportunity as their attention is momentarily split between the prize and your advancing form. The air crackles with desperation and the acrid smell of burning paper from the shredders. You will not let them finish. Not now. Not ever. The architect's fingers, slender and precise, have already brushed against the brittle yellow documents, bound with twine, nestled deep within the open safe. A lifetime of meticulously woven deception, a tapestry of shadow and blood, rests just beyond their grasp. And yours. The metallic click of the safe door, still echoing in the sterile quiet, feels like the final damning punctuation mark. You launch forward, a coiled spring of raw conviction and years of gnawing regret. Your movement is a blur against the muted tones of the office. A desperate lunge to sever the architect's connection to their damning secrets. Your hand clamps down on their wrist, a grip born of pure adrenaline and the ghosts of every victim you failed to save. Their head snaps up, eyes once cool and calculating, now alight with a predatory fury. They hadn't expected you, not like this, not here. A silent struggle erupts. The architect, though slighter than you, possesses a surprising wiry strength, fueled by a panicked desperation to protect their carefully constructed facade. They twist, attempting to yank their arm free, their other hand instinctively reaching deeper into the safe, clawing for the documents. You hear the faint rustle of paper as they try to pull the bundle free, to tear it, to destroy the evidence that will finally unravel their monstrous legacy. A guttural growl escapes your throat, primal and unbidden. You drive them back, away from the safe's maw, their body hitting the steel-plated door with a dull thud. The impact rattles the room, a jarring counterpoint to the quiet hum of the building's ventilation. The architect, recovering swiftly, lashes out, a sharp elbow catching you hard in the jaw. Pain explodes, a blinding flash, but it only sharpens your resolve. This isn't just about justice. It's about a debt owed, a promise whispered to the silent faces in the photographs you've carried in your mind for years. You grapple, a dance of violence and desperation amidst the polished surfaces and hushed professionalism of the office. A heavy chair clatters to the floor. They twist, aiming a kick at your knee, but you anticipate it, shifting your weight. Your hand finds their shoulder, shoving them towards one of the large industrial shred bins, its hungry maw a silent metal threat. It ends now. You rasp, your voice hoarse, strained. The architect's eyes, wide and wild, flicker towards the shred bin, then back to you. They know the game is up. With a sudden surge, they break free, but only for a moment. Their gaze falls upon a heavy, ornate paperweight on a nearby desk. A miniature bronze replica of a famous architectural marvel. Before they can seize it, you're on them again, a whirlwind of motion. You tackle them, driving them to the floor. The impact sends a jolt through your own weary frame, but you ignore it. Your knee presses into their back, pinning them, and your hand reaches for their wrist, twisting it until you hear a sharp, involuntary gasp. From your vantage point on the floor, you can see into the safe. The yellow documents, though ruffled, are still there, intact. A single brittle sheet has fallen out, lying face up on the safe's metallic shelf. Your eyes dart to it, even as you maintain your hold on the architect. The sheet is a meticulously hand-drawn architectural blueprint, dated decades ago, of a small, nondescript residential building. But it's not the building itself that catches your breath. It's the annotations. Tiny, precise symbols, almost imperceptible unless you knew what to look for, marking specific structural weaknesses. And next to each symbol, a name, neatly penned in a familiar, elegant script. Names of victims. Names you've seen on police reports, on faded news clippings. Rebuilding begins. This is it. It's not just a list. It's a design, a methodology, a signature etched in ink and blood. The architect, now limp beneath you, stares blankly at the ceiling, their breath coming in shallow, defeated puffs. The realization dawns on them too, stark and brutal, that the game is irrevocably over. Footsteps pound in the hallway outside, growing louder, closer. The heavy outer door of the office bursts open, revealing the detective, his face grim, followed by two uniformed officers, weapons drawn. Their eyes sweep the chaotic scene, the overturned chair, the scattered papers, you pinning the architect to the floor. Seth Corbin, the detective says, his voice flat. A flicker of something unreadable crosses his face as his gaze settles on the architect. It's done. You rise slowly, your muscles screaming in protest, the architect still held firmly. The architect offers no resistance as the uniformed officers move in, securing their wrists with practiced efficiency. The metallic click of the handcuffs is a stark, final echo of the safe door, but this one signals an end, not a beginning. The detective steps past you, moving directly to the safe. His jaw tightens, a silent acknowledgement of the meticulous evil that has just been brought to light. He retrieves the document, his movements careful, reverent, understanding its immense weight. The tension, which had been a constant companion for so long, begins to recede, leaving behind a vast, echoing emptiness. The architect is led away, their footsteps fading down the corridor. Justice, in its slow, grinding way, has begun to turn its gears. But the processing, the true aftermath, is only just beginning for you. The echoes of the confrontation still hum in your bones, a phantom thrum beneath your skin. The uniformed officers guide the architect away, their movements precise, professional. You watch them go, a figure of spent fury and chilling calm, now merely a body in transit, stripped of their elaborate performance. The air in the abandoned factory, thick with dust and the metallic tang of old blood, begins to thin, making space for a quiet, almost unsettling peace. Days bleed into a week. The official statements are carefully worded, acknowledging the intricate nature of the case, the decades-long shadow. Your name surfaces, not with fanfare, but with a subtle shift in the narrative. Former Detective Seth Corbin, whose insights proved invaluable. A quiet phrase. A crack in the wall of your disgrace. The media, ever hungry, shifts its focus, painting the architect as a mastermind, a phantom brought to ground not by luck, but by tenacious pursuit. The building is a monolith of smoked glass and polished chrome, a fortress of financial secrets. The lead detective, their face etched with a new respect, meets you in a conference room devoid of warmth. Sunlight struggles through the tinted windows, casting the room in a perpetual twilight. They've been busy, the lead detective states, their voice low, indicating a stack of binders on the table. Each one is filled with copies of shell corporations, offshore accounts, and meticulously laundered funds. The architect's empire wasn't just built on concrete and steel, Seth. It was built on paper, on the quiet transfer of wealth, on the systematic dismantling of lives through financial ruin before the physical act. You pick up a binder, the crisp pages cool against your fingertips. The architect wasn't just a killer. They were an economic predator, harvesting their victims in multiple ways. The lead detective gestures towards a large, industrial-grade shred bin in the corner, its gaping maw a testament to forgotten histories. They were in the process of erasing everything. We caught them just in time. The full extent of their network, the true depth of their financial machinations, it's staggering. A legal counsel, sharp-suited and silent, enters and places a heavy, embossed key on the table. We've finally gained access to the primary locked safe within their private office here. They announce, their voice devoid of inflection. It contains an anomaly. You follow them down a hushed corridor, the click of your shoes the only sound. The safe is an imposing steel cube embedded in the wall, its combination lock gleaming. The council works with practiced ease, the tumblers falling into place with soft, definitive clicks. The heavy door swings open, revealing not stacks of cash or jewels, but a single leather-bound journal. You reach for it, your fingers brushing the aged leather. It's an elegant, almost antique volume. Inside, the architect's precise, almost artistic script fills the pages. It's not a confession in the traditional sense, but a chronicle. A meticulously documented account of perceived injustices, slights from decades past, the genesis of their obsession. The true reveal unfurls itself page by page. It wasn't just about the victims, it was about the system. The architects saw themselves as a sculptor of consequences, reshaping the lives of those they deemed deserving of retribution, using their financial acumen to dismantle their targets piece by piece before delivering the final physical blow. It details how they used the very legal loopholes of this offshore law office with shred bins and locked safes to build their impenetrable financial fortress, their sanctuary of anonymity. This was their operational hub, their silent accomplice. A specific entry catches your eye. A cryptic reference to a hidden clause in a forgotten property deed. The very detail that had eluded you all those years ago. It's a moment of searing clarity. A puzzle piece slotting into place with an audible click in your mind. Your initial instincts, dismissed as paranoia, were tragically accurate. The tension in the room, though unspoken, is palpable. You close the journal, the leather cool and heavy in your hands. The lead detective meets your gaze, a silent acknowledgement passing between you. The words aren't necessary. Your reputation, fractured and scattered, has begun to coalesce once more. The ghost of your past, the phantom killer, has been given a name, a face, and a motive. The world outside the law office still spins, indifferent to the revelations within. You step out, blinking against the softened light of late afternoon. The city hums with its usual indifference, a stark contrast to the quiet horror you've just witnessed. The weight of the years, the burden of failure, has eased, but it hasn't vanished. It has simply changed its form, settling into a different kind of wisdom. The experience has etched new lines on your soul, sharpened your perception, deepened your resolve. The fight isn't over, not truly. You carry that knowledge now, a quiet fire in your belly. The past is reconciled, but the future, unwritten and vast, stretches before you. A new beginning forged in the crucible of truth.